welcome back. Now, with the government's decision to hike the value-added tax by 3% next year, predictions are that inflation would rise to around 7%. Despite the rise in inflation, Chairman of Advocata Institute, Murtaza claims that the overall outlook for 2024 is promising as the economy gains momentum. However, highlighting a key concern, Jafarji points out the risk of the country exiting the IMF program off the back of political changes next year. For more on this, let's hear from Murtaza himself on our next segment, Understanding Taxes in Sri Lanka.
The outlook for 2024 looks a lot promising than 2023. We are expecting in the early part of next year inflation to go up to about 7%, of which about 3% is coming from the one-off increase in VAT, which is not necessarily inflationary because it will be fiscally contractionary for the government. They're going to collect a lot more revenue. This year, 2023, was supposed to be a primary balance deficit, but we managed to have a primary balance surplus, which means that the government's revenue collection minus expenditure without interest rate was positive, which allows it to only roll over the debt. It doesn't have to borrow to fund primary expenditure. Interest rates have been coming down, and I'm expecting the prime lending rate to go below 12%. There is room for further policy cuts because the economy is contracted. It's operating about 15% below what it was. The Sri Lankan rupee has continued to appreciate. Today the rate is 323 because the tourist dollars, we are in the high season, and also remittances have been coming in. There's an expectation that in January electricity prices will be reduced. There's an expectation globally of a soft landing which has dampened oil prices, which means that we can buy fuel at cheaper prices than we were buying last year. There is a recovery in the economy. Economic activity has improved. The biggest impacted sector has been construction. It will take a little bit time and it probably never go back to where it was because it was highly heightened. But all indications are that the economic momentum is building up. We are also finalizing our private creditor external sector debt workout. And if that was to come through in the first quarter, it is highly likely that Sri Lanka can regain a rating. It is currently at selected default. So all indications are that economic momentum and the macro stabilization has worked. The concern is going to be growth. Expectations are taking a lot longer than anticipated because we have an election that is coming up and there doesn't seem to be a clear winner in sight. There's a lot of posturing and conjecture going on. There's also a fear like previous years that Sri Lankan elections are an auction of non-existing resources. But we are now fiscally constrained because we have a new central bank law. We are under IMF program. The targets for next year also are very ambitious. That revenue has to go up significantly, something like 30%. It's highly likely it will have to come on the back of a recovering economy. Risk factors is that 2024 is a El Nino year. We are starting the year on a high because we had this exceptionally good rains. There's also the danger of politics and that we may exit an IMF program.